The thunderous crack of gunfire echoed across the dusty Montana street as Pearl Vasquez ducked behind an overturned wagon, her heart pounding against her ribs. She wasn't supposed to be in Silverwater at all, let alone in the middle of a shootout between the sheriff's men and what appeared to be cattle rustlers. The year was 1878, and Pearl had exactly $3 to her name, a letter promising work as a schoolteacher, and nowhere to go now that the stagecoach that brought her lay in splintered ruins behind her. "Stay down if you want to live, miss." The voice came from above her. Pearl looked up to see a man in a worn leather duster and dusty Stetson crouched on the boardwalk, rifle in hand. His eyes, piercing blue beneath the shadow of his hat brim, locked with hers for only a moment before he fired again at someone down the street. "I hadn't planned on standing," Pearl called back, gathering her skirts closer as a bullet splintered the wagon wheel near her head. The stranger slid down beside her, his back pressed against the wagon. "Logan Kincaid," he said, extending a dirt-stained hand as casually as if they'd met at a church social. "Sorry about your welcome to Silverwater." "Pearl Vasquez," she replied, automatically taking his hand despite the absurdity of the situation. "Is it always like this?" "Only on Tuesdays," he said with a grim smile that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. "When the shooting stops, run for that stone building." He nodded toward a sturdy structure across the street. "That's my ranch office. You'll be safe there until this blows over." Pearl studied him. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30, with several days' worth of stubble darkening his jaw and a thin scar that ran along his right cheekbone. His clothes were those of a working rancher, not a gunslinger, though he handled the Winchester with obvious familiarity. "Why should I trust you, Mr. Kincaid?" "Because I'm not shooting at you," he replied simply. "And in Silverwater, that counts for something." The gunfire had slowed, punctuated by shouts as the sheriff's posse gained the upper hand. When it seemed the fighting had moved to the other end of the street, Logan grabbed Pearl's carpetbag with one hand and her elbow with the other. "Now," he said, and they ran. Pearl's boots skidded on the dusty street as they dashed across to the stone building. Logan kicked the door open, ushered her inside, and slammed it shut behind them, dropping the heavy wooden bar into place. The interior was cool and dim after the harsh sunlight. Pearl leaned against a desk, trying to catch her breath while Logan moved to the window, peering cautiously through the grime-streaked glass. "I think they're moving on," he said, setting his rifle aside. "Rustlers hit the Sanderson place last night. Sheriff's been chasing them since dawn." He turned to her, curiosity evident on his face. "Now, Miss Vasquez, what brings you to our little corner of paradise?" Pearl straightened her disheveled dress and reached for her reticule, which miraculously had remained attached to her wrist throughout the ordeal. From it, she extracted a folded letter. "I'm the new schoolteacher," she said. "Or I was supposed to be. The school board chairman was to meet my stage, but—" She gestured vaguely toward the street where the splintered remains of her transportation lay. Logan ran a hand through his dark hair, displacing his hat. "That'd be Howard Wilkins. He's probably down at the jail helping the sheriff." He glanced at the letter. "Teaching position, huh? We've been waiting on a schoolmarm for months." "I'm qualified," Pearl said defensively. "I taught for 2 years in Santa Fe." "Never said you weren't." Logan moved to a cabinet and pulled out a bottle and 2 glasses. "You look like you could use a drink." Pearl hesitated. Ladies didn't drink whiskey with strange men, even ones who had possibly saved their lives. But her hands were shaking, and she could still hear the echo of gunfire in her ears. "Just a small one." He poured a finger of amber liquid into each glass and handed one to her. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass slightly. Pearl sipped the whiskey, wincing as it burned a path down her throat. "Is Silverwater always this dangerous?" The advertisement said it was a peaceful, God-fearing community seeking educational advancement. Logan laughed, a surprisingly warm sound in the austere room. Whoever wrote that has a gift for fiction. We're a cattle town, Miss Vasquez. Sometimes peaceful, occasionally God-fearing, and desperately in need of education. He took another sip. But it's not usually this exciting. Bad luck for you to arrive during a rustler chase. Pearl set her glass down. I should find Mr. Wilkins. I need to secure lodgings before nightfall. The boarding house burned down last month, Logan said. Mrs. Pettigrew takes in boarders, but last I heard she was full up with the new telegraph operator and his family. Pearl felt panic rising in her chest. She had precisely one reference letter, $3, and no place to stay. There must be somewhere. Logan studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once, as if coming to a decision. I have a proposition for you, Miss Vasquez, one that might solve both our problems. Pearl raised her eyebrows, instantly wary. She'd heard propositions from men before. Logan must have read her expression because he quickly added, a legitimate business arrangement, nothing untoward. He set his glass down and leaned against the desk. I own the Double K Ranch about 5 miles from town. Biggest spread in the county. I also happen to be on the school board. And how does this solve my housing problem, Mr. Kincaid? I have a house. A good one, with a proper roof and glass windows. Too big for just me. He paused. It also has a room that would make a fine classroom until the town builds a proper schoolhouse. Pearl blinked in surprise. You're offering to let me stay at your ranch? And teach there? Yes to both, but there's more to it. Logan straightened and began to pace. The thing is, Miss Vasquez, I've got a problem. My grandfather left me the ranch on one condition, that I be married by my 30th birthday. That's 3 weeks from now. Pearl's mouth fell open. Mr. Kincaid, if you're suggesting a marriage of convenience, he said quickly. In name only. You get a place to live and teach. I keep my ranch. After a year, when the terms of the will are satisfied, we can quietly dissolve the arrangement. Pearl stared at him, speechless. The proposition was outrageous, improper, and possibly the only solution to her immediate problems. Why me? You don't even know me. Logan shrugged. You're educated. You've got grit, I saw that when you didn't panic during the shooting, and you need help as much as I do. He met her eyes directly. I'm not looking for love, Miss Vasquez. My ranch is my life. But I respect what you're trying to do here, bringing education to a place that sorely needs it. Pearl turned away, her mind racing. She had left Santa Fe to escape a scandal, not of her making false accusations from a spurned suitor that had tarnished her reputation. Silverwater was supposed to be her fresh start. Now this stranger was offering her a solution that was both salvation and potential ruin. What would people say? A schoolteacher living with a bachelor? They'd say we're married, which we would be. On paper. Logan's voice softened. Look, I know it's not ideal, but the alternative is you sleeping in the livery stable tonight, and me losing my family's legacy in 3 weeks. A shout from outside interrupted them. Logan moved to the window again. Sheriff's got the situation under control now. He turned back to Pearl. I don't need an answer this minute. Think about it. I'll introduce you to Wilkins and you can get the lay of the land. Pearl nodded slowly. I appreciate your unconventional offer, Mr. Kincaid. I will consider it. Logan unbarred the door and checked the street before motioning her to follow. As they stepped back into the bright Montana sunshine, Pearl couldn't help but wonder if she'd jumped from the stagecoach into an even more precarious situation. The sheriff's office was a hive of activity when they arrived. 2 men in handcuffs sat on a bench, while the sheriff, a burly man with an impressive mustache, filled out paperwork. Several others stood around, recounting their roles in the excitement. Sheriff Tanner, Logan called. Is Howard around? I've got someone he needs to meet. A balding man with spectacles pushed through the small crowd. I'm Howard Wilkins, he said, extending his hand to Pearl. You must be Miss Vasquez. I was on my way to meet your stage when all hell pardoned me when the commotion broke out. He looked genuinely distressed. I do apologize for the circumstances of your arrival. Mr. Wilkins, Pearl said, shaking his hand, I'm relieved to find you safe. Howard, Logan cut in, Miss Vasquez needs accommodations. The boarding house is gone, and Mrs. Pettigrew is full up. Howard's face fell. Oh dear, I hadn't considered. He looked around helplessly. Perhaps the hotel? The hotel isn't suitable for a lady alone, Logan said firmly. I've offered her the use of a room at my ranch. She can start teaching the children from the outlying homesteads right away, instead of waiting for the town to decide on a school building. Howard adjusted his spectacles, looking relieved. That's very generous, Logan. But it wouldn't be proper. It would be if we were married, Logan said bluntly. The office fell silent. Even the handcuffed rustlers looked up with interest. Married? Howard sputtered. But you've only just met. It's a practical arrangement, Logan continued, as if discussing the weather. Miss Vasquez needs a place to stay and teach. I need a wife to satisfy my grandfather's will. We help each other. Pearl felt her cheeks burning as every eye in the room turned to her. This wasn't how she'd imagined her arrival in Silverwater, the center of a scandal before she'd even properly arrived. Mr. Kincaid and I have not reached any agreement, she said firmly. And this is hardly the place to discuss such matters. Sheriff Tanner, who had been listening with obvious amusement, finally spoke up. The lady's right. Take your marital negotiations elsewhere, Kincaid. He tipped his hat to Pearl. Welcome to Silverwater, madam. Don't let these yahoos scare you off just yet. Sheriff, Logan acknowledged with a nod. Howard, I'm taking Miss Vasquez to get some dinner at Maddie's. We can discuss school board business after she's had a chance to rest. Outside, Pearl rounded on Logan. That was humiliating. You made me sound like some desperate fortune hunter. I apologize, Logan said, looking genuinely contrite. That wasn't my intention. But word travels fast in Silverwater, and I thought it better to state things plainly than have rumors start. Pearl took a deep breath. Mr. Kincaid, I appreciate your help today, but I'm not sure I can agree to your proposition. Fair enough. He gestured toward a building with a painted sign reading, Maddie's Kitchen. Let's get some food in you before you make any decisions. Maddie makes the best biscuits this side of the Mississippi. Inside, the small restaurant was cozy and surprisingly refined for a frontier town. Checkered tablecloths covered sturdy wooden tables, and landscape paintings adorned the walls. A plump woman with gray-streaked hair bustled over. Logan Kincaid. Heard you were in the thick of that mess on Main Street. She turned her attention to Pearl. And who's this lovely young lady? Maddie, meet Pearl Vasquez, our new school teacher. Pearl, this is Maddie Holloway, the best cook in Montana Territory and the town's most reliable source of information. Maddie laughed. Don't you listen to him, dear? I just keep my ears open. She led them to a table by the window. Coffee's fresh, and I've got beef stew and biscuits ready. After she left to fetch their meal, Pearl studied Logan across the table. You're well known here. My family helped settle this valley, he said. Double K's been around for 3 generations. And your grandfather's unusual condition for inheritance? Logan sighed. Matthias Kincaid was a romantic old coot. Believed a man wasn't complete without a wife and family. He watched me pour everything into the ranch and decided I needed balancing out, as he put it. And you've waited until 3 weeks before the deadline? A shadow passed over Logan's face. I was engaged. Elizabeth Moore, daughter of a cattle baron from Helena. She changed her mind 6 months ago. I'm sorry, Pearl said softly. Don't be. Lizzie made the right call. She wanted city life, society, things I can't give her. He shrugged. But it left me in a bind with the will. Maddie returned with steaming bowls of stew and a basket of biscuits that smelled heavenly. Pearl realized she was famished and dug in gratefully. "This is delicious," she said between bites. "Told you," Logan replied, breaking open a biscuit. "So, Miss Vasquez, what's your story? What brings you all the way to Montana from Santa Fe?" Pearl carefully set down her spoon. "I needed a change. The position here sounded promising." She offered nothing more. Logan studied her, his blue eyes thoughtful. "Running from something?" "Aren't we all, Mr. Kincaid?" she countered. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Fair point." He leaned back in his chair. "Let me lay it out plainly. I need a wife on paper to keep my ranch. You need a place to stay and teach. I'm offering marriage, a proper roof over your head, and the freedom to establish a school. In return, I ask only that you stay for 1 year and maintain the appearance of a marriage. And after the year, you're free to go with no questions asked. I'll even provide a stipend to help you get established elsewhere, if that's what you want." Pearl considered his words carefully. "And marital obligations?" Logan didn't flinch at the direct question. "None. Separate bedrooms. You have my word as a gentleman." Pearl took a sip of her coffee, weighing her limited options. She had nowhere to go, no money to speak of, and a profession that required respectability. A marriage of convenience to a seemingly honorable man who offered her independence might be her best choice, however unconventional. "I would want to continue teaching," she said finally. "Not just during our arrangement, but after, whether I stay in Silverwater or move on." "Of course," Logan nodded. "I wouldn't expect anything less." "And I would need your assurance that you would not change the terms of our agreement." Pearl met his gaze steadily. "I've known men whose word proved flexible when convenient." Something like respect flickered in Logan's eyes. "Miss Vasquez, I've never broken a promise in my life, and I don't intend to start now. You have my word that our arrangement will remain exactly as agreed." Pearl took a deep breath. "Then, Mr. Kincaid, I accept your proposal." Logan blinked, as if surprised by her decision. Then he smiled a genuine smile that transformed his weathered face. "Well then," he said, extending his hand across the table. "I believe we have a deal, partner." Pearl placed her hand in his, feeling calluses against her palm. "Indeed we do, Mr. Kincaid." "Logan," he corrected. "If we're to be married, you should probably use my given name." "Logan," Pearl repeated, the name feeling strange on her tongue. "And I'm Pearl." Neither of them noticed Maddie watching from behind the counter, a knowing smile on her face. The wedding took place 3 days later in the small whitewashed church at the edge of town. Pearl wore her best dress, a blue cotton frock with lace at the collar, and clutched a small bouquet of wildflowers that the blacksmith's daughter had gathered for her that morning. The ceremony was brief, with Howard Wilkins and Maddie Holloway serving as witnesses. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the pastor said. "You may kiss your bride." Logan hesitated, then leaned forward and placed a chaste kiss on Pearl's cheek. The small gathering of townspeople who had come to witness the event applauded politely, though Pearl didn't miss the speculative glances exchanged. A schoolteacher marrying a rancher she'd just met was bound to raise eyebrows. "Congratulations, Mrs. Kincaid," Maddie said warmly as they exited the church. "You've caught yourself one of the good ones." "Thank you, Maddie," Pearl replied, still adjusting to the weight of the simple gold band on her finger. "I feel very fortunate." Logan stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in a black suit that was clearly seldom worn. "We should head back to the ranch," he said quietly. "Storm's brewing." Indeed, dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, promising a downpour before nightfall. Logan helped Pearl into the wagon and climbed up beside her. With a flick of the reins, they were off, leaving Silverwater behind. They rode in silence for several miles, the only sounds the creak of the wagon wheels and the distant rumble of thunder. Pearl watched the landscape change from the dusty town to rolling grasslands dotted with sagebrush and the occasional stand of pines. "It's beautiful country," she said finally, breaking the silence. Logan nodded. "That it is. Different from New Mexico, I expect." "Very. It's bigger somehow. More open." "That's what I love about it." Logan gestured to the vast expanse around them. "Room to breathe. Room to build something that matters." The wagon crested a hill, and Pearl gasped. Spread out below them was a verdant valley, bisected by a winding creek. At its center stood a large two-story house built of timber and native stone, surrounded by several outbuildings and corrals. Cattle grazed in the distance, dark specks against the green landscape. "Welcome to Double K," Logan said, a note of pride in his voice. "Home sweet home." "It's magnificent," Pearl said honestly. "I didn't expect something so civilized?" Logan grinned. "My mother wouldn't settle for less. She came from Boston and insisted on certain standards, even in the wilderness." As they approached, Pearl could see the care that had gone into the property. The house was well maintained, with a wide porch wrapping around three sides. Flower beds, though somewhat overgrown, lined the front walkway. "Your mother had good taste," Pearl observed. "She did." Logan's voice softened. "She's been gone 8 years now. Consumption. Father followed her a year later, some say, from a broken heart, though the doctor called it pneumonia." "I'm sorry," Pearl said, understanding now why the inheritance mattered so much. This wasn't just property. It was the physical embodiment of his family's legacy. A ranch hand emerged from one of the outbuildings as they pulled up to the house. "Boss, didn't expect you back so soon. We got the north fence mended, but there's trouble at the east pasture. Looks like someone cut the wire." "Thanks, Pete. I'll ride out tomorrow to check it." Logan jumped down from the wagon and came around to help Pearl down. "Pete, this is Pearl Vasquez. Kincaid now. My wife." Pete's eyebrows shot up, but he recovered quickly. "Madam," he said, touching his hat brim. "Pleasure to meet you." "Pearl, Pete's been with Double K longer than I have. He knows this place better than anyone." "It's a beautiful ranch," Pearl said. "I look forward to getting to know it better." "Well, I'll be—" Pete grinned. "Boss got himself hitched. Wait till the boys hear this." Logan took Pearl's carpet bag in one hand and placed his other at the small of her back, guiding her toward the house. "Let's get you settled before that storm hits." The interior of the house was as impressive as its exterior. A large central hall opened to a parlor on one side and a dining room on the other. The furniture was solid and well crafted, if a bit worn, and landscape paintings adorned the walls. "My mother's touch," Logan explained, noticing Pearl's interest in the artwork. She painted when she had time, which wasn't often with a ranch to help run. "She was talented," Pearl said, studying a particularly striking view of the valley at sunset. "Come on, I'll show you upstairs." Logan led the way up a broad staircase to the second floor. "Main bedroom's there," he said, pointing to a door at the end of the hallway. "That'll be yours? I've been using the room across the hall since Father died." He opened the door to reveal a large, airy bedroom with a 4-poster bed and windows overlooking the valley. "It's lovely," Pearl said, stepping inside. The room was clean but had a neglected air, as if no one had truly lived in it for years. "Bathrooms down the hall. We have running water. Thanks to my father's engineering skills and the creek. Kitchen's downstairs at the back of the house." Logan set her bag down. "Mrs. Cooper comes in 3 days a week to cook and clean, but she's off today. There's cold chicken and bread in the pantry for supper." Pearl turned to face him. "Thank you, Logan, for all of this." He shifted uncomfortably. "No need for thanks. This is a business arrangement, remember?" But his expression softened slightly. "Get settled in. Make yourself at home. We'll figure out the details of your school tomorrow." After he left, Pearl sat on the edge of the bed, feeling strangely disoriented. Just 4 days ago, she had been on a stagecoach, heading toward what she thought would be a simple teaching position. Now she was married to a man she barely knew, living in a grand house in the Montana wilderness. "Mrs. Kincaid," she whispered to herself, testing the name. It felt foreign on her tongue, a role she was playing rather than her true identity. She unpacked her meager belongings, arranging her books on a previously empty shelf and hanging her few dresses in the spacious wardrobe. The simple actions helped ground her, reminding her that whatever strange path her life had taken, she was still Pearl, still a teacher, still determined to make her own way. The storm arrived just as darkness fell, rain lashing against the windows while lightning illuminated the valley in brief, dramatic flashes. Pearl made her way downstairs to find Logan in the kitchen, setting out plates at a large wooden table. "Hope you don't mind a cold supper," he said. "I'm not much of a cook." "Cold chicken is fine," Pearl assured him, taking a seat. They ate in awkward silence for several minutes, the patter of rain and rumble of thunder the only sounds. Finally, Logan cleared his throat. "I was thinking we could convert the old study into your classroom. It's got good light and enough space for about a dozen students." Pearl brightened at the mention of teaching. "That sounds perfect. How many children are there nearby?" "Maybe 15, within riding distance, ages 6 to 16 or so. Most have had some schooling, but it's been sporadic. The last teacher left 2 years ago." "I'll need to assess their levels," Pearl said, already planning. "And supplies, books, slates, paper?" "Make a list of what you need. I'll order it from Helena next time I go." Logan cut another piece of chicken. "The ranch hand's children will be your first students, I expect. 4 of them, ranging from 7 to 13. Smart kids, but more familiar with cattle than classics." "Education is education, whether it's Shakespeare or animal husbandry," Pearl said. "I'm not afraid of teaching practical knowledge alongside book learning." Logan studied her with new interest. "You're not what I expected in a school teacher, Pearl Vasquez." "And what did you expect, Mr. Kincaid?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Someone more rigid, prim." He smiled slightly. "Someone who would have fainted at the first gunshot, not someone who ducked for cover and kept her wits about her." "I grew up in Santa Fe," Pearl reminded him. "It wasn't always peaceful there either." "Fair enough." He pushed his plate away. "There's something you should know. Now that you're here, the rustling problem isn't just in town. We've lost 30 head in the past month. Someone's targeting Double K specifically." Pearl frowned. "Do you know who?" "I have suspicions. There's a new outfit north of here, the Blackwater Ranch. Showed up about a year ago with money to burn and not much explanation of where it came from. Their foreman, Silas Hardin, has a reputation from down Texas way. Not a good one." "Have you spoken to the sheriff?" "Tanner's a good man, but he's stretched thin, and proving cattle theft is hard unless you catch someone in the act." Logan's jaw tightened. "Just be careful if you're out riding alone. Stay close to the house." "I'm not completely helpless," Pearl said. "My father taught me to shoot." Logan looked surprised. "Did he now?" "He believed women should be able to protect themselves." She didn't add that her father's teachings had proved necessary more than once during her time in Santa Fe. "Smart man, your father." Logan stood and began clearing the dishes. "It's getting late. I'll be heading out at dawn to check that cut fence, so don't be alarmed if you hear movement." "I'm an early riser myself," Pearl said. "Perhaps I could help with breakfast before you go." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," she interrupted gently. "But we're partners now. Even if it is just a business arrangement, I'd like to pull my weight." Logan nodded slowly. "All right then. Breakfast at dawn." As Pearl climbed the stairs to her borrowed bedroom, she wondered what she had gotten herself into. She was now the wife of a rancher she'd known for less than a week, living miles from town, with cattle rustlers operating nearby. Yet strangely, she felt more at peace than she had in months. There was something comforting about the solid walls of the house, the sound of rain on the roof, and the straightforward nature of her new husband. Logan Kincaid might be a man of few words, but he seemed to be a man of his word and, in Pearl's experience, that was a rare and valuable quality. Pearl woke before dawn, the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch already stirring around her. She dressed quickly in a simple brown skirt and white shirtwaist, pinning her dark hair into a practical bun. By the time she made her way downstairs, she could smell coffee brewing. Logan stood at the stove, his back to her, already dressed in work clothes. "Morning," he said without turning. "Coffee's ready if you want some." "Thank you," Pearl said, pouring herself a cup. "What can I help with?" "I was just going to fry some eggs and bacon." Logan glanced over his shoulder. "You sleep all right?" "Very well," Pearl replied, surprised to realize it was true. The comfortable bed and the sound of rain had lulled her into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. "The storm passed, I see." "Moved east around midnight." Logan cracked eggs into a cast-iron skillet. "Left everything fresh, though. Good day for you to get acquainted with the place." They worked together quietly, Logan frying the bacon and eggs while Pearl sliced bread and set the table. It struck her how domestic the scene was, like a real married couple starting their day together. Over breakfast, Logan outlined his plans. "I'll be checking that cut fence first, then riding the east boundary. Might not be back till sundown." He hesitated. "Will you be all right here alone?" "I won't be alone," Pearl pointed out. "The ranch hands are around, and you mentioned Mrs. Cooper comes today?" "She does. Martha Cooper's been keeping this house running since my mother fell ill. Good woman, if a bit talkative." He drained his coffee cup. "She'll be curious about you." "I can handle curiosity," Pearl assured him. "I thought I'd explore the house first, then perhaps see about setting up the classroom." Logan nodded. "Study's the second door on the right off the main hall. Everything in there is at your disposal." He stood and reached for his hat. "I should get going." Pearl walked with him to the door, unsure of the proper protocol for seeing off a husband who wasn't really a husband. "Be careful," she said finally. Logan paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I always am." He studied her face for a moment. "You know, you really are something, Pearl Vasquez. Most women would be complaining about being left alone their first full day in a new place." "I'm not most women," she replied. "And it's Pearl Kincaid now, remember?" A smile flickered briefly across his face. "So it is." And then he was gone, striding across the yard toward the stables. Pearl spent the morning exploring her new home. The house was larger than it had appeared, with the main floor containing the parlor, dining room, kitchen, study, and a small library filled with books that made Pearl's heart sing. Upstairs, besides the bedrooms she already knew about, there were two additional smaller bedrooms and a sewing room. The study, as Logan had suggested, would make an excellent classroom. It had large windows facing east and south, providing ample light and enough floor space for several desks. A large oak desk dominated one end of the room, with empty bookshelves lining one wall. Pearl was measuring the room, making notes about how many desks might fit comfortably, when she heard the front door open and close. "Hello," a woman's voice called. "Mr. Kincaid?" "In the study," Pearl replied, setting aside her notebook. A plump, gray-haired woman appeared in the doorway, her round face a picture of curiosity. "Well now, who might you be?" "Pearl Kincaid," she said, extending her hand. "You must be Mrs. Cooper." The woman's eyes widened comically. "Kincaid? As in, Logan's wife, yes. We were married yesterday in Silverwater." Mrs. Cooper seemed momentarily speechless, a condition Pearl suspected was unusual for her. "Well, bless my soul," she finally managed. "The master gone and got himself married without a word to anybody." "It was rather sudden," Pearl admitted. "I'm the new schoolteacher. Logan has generously offered this room as a classroom until the town builds a proper school." Mrs. Cooper stepped fully into the room, her sharp eyes taking in both Pearl and the surroundings. "Teaching right here in the house? Well, that's something new." Her gaze softened slightly. "It's good to see these rooms being used again. House has been too quiet since the old master and mistress passed." "I hope I'm not disrupting your routine," Pearl said. "Lands, no, it'll be a pleasure to cook for someone who appreciates it. Mr. Logan eats like it's just fuel. Never mind the flavor." Mrs. Cooper untied her bonnet. "Now, you just carry on with whatever you were doing. I'll get lunch started and then we can have a proper talk." The proper talk turned out to be a gentle interrogation over sandwiches, with Mrs. Cooper uncovering Pearl's background, education, and how she'd met Logan with the skill of a seasoned detective. Pearl answered carefully, sticking as close to the truth as possible while avoiding any mention of their marriage's conditional nature. "Well, it's just like Mr. Logan to do things his own way," Mrs. Cooper said finally. "No courting, no engagement, just straight to I do. But I can't say I'm sorry. This place needs a woman's touch again." "I'll do my best," Pearl said. "Though running a ranch house is new to me." "You just ask if you need help, dear. I've been keeping this place going for 15 years. Mrs. Cooper began clearing the dishes. "The master's room, your room now, I suppose could use some freshening up. The linens are clean, but it's been a while since those curtains saw soap and water." By mid-afternoon, Pearl had helped Mrs. Cooper revitalize the master bedroom, making it truly feel like her own space rather than a museum to Logan's parents. They'd washed and rehung the lace curtains, dusted every surface, and arranged Pearl's few personal items around the room. "There now," Mrs. Cooper said with satisfaction. "A proper lady's chamber. Though you could use more dresses if you don't mind my saying so. 3 dresses isn't enough for the mistress of Double K." "I travel light," Pearl said, reluctant to admit that 3 dresses represented her entire wardrobe. "But I suppose I should consider a few more practical items for ranch life. Mr. Logan will be going to Helena next month for supplies. It's a proper city, you could find whatever you need there." Mrs. Cooper glanced out the window. "Speaking of Mr. Logan, that's him riding in now, and earlier than I expected." Pearl looked out to see Logan dismounting from his horse at the stables, his movements betraying exhaustion even at a distance. "He said he might be out until sundown." "Something must have happened," Mrs. Cooper said, concern creasing her brow. "He doesn't usually cut a day short." Pearl hurried downstairs and out to the stables, an unexplained anxiety speeding her steps. She found Logan unsaddling his horse, his movements stiff. "You're back early," she said, trying to keep her tone casual. Logan turned, and Pearl gasped. The left side of his face was bruised, a cut above his eyebrow crusted with dried blood. "What happened?" she demanded, stepping closer to examine his injuries. "Ran into some of Hardin's men," Logan said grimly. 3 of them, checking out our east boundary. When I confronted them, they decided to make a point." 3 against 1? Pearl's voice rose in indignation. "That's not making a point, that's ambush." A flicker of amusement crossed Logan's battered face. "I held my own. 2 of them rode off looking worse than me." He winced as he lifted the saddle off his horse. "Though I might have a cracked rib to show for it." "You need to sit down and let me look at that," Pearl said firmly. "Mrs. Cooper is still here, she can help." "It's nothing," Logan protested, but he didn't resist when Pearl took his arm and guided him toward the house. In the kitchen, Mrs. Cooper clucked and fussed, gathering hot water, clean cloths, and her special tin of salve. Pearl gently cleaned the cut on Logan's face while he sat stiffly at the table, trying not to show pain when she probed the bruised area around his ribs. "Nothing's broken," Pearl declared after a careful examination. "But you're going to be sore for days." "Told you it wasn't serious," Logan muttered. "3 men jumped you, and you're lucky to have gotten away with just bruises," Pearl retorted. "This isn't something to dismiss, Logan. What if they come back with more men, or target the ranch when you're away?" "She's right, Mr. Logan," Mrs. Cooper chimed in. "This feud with Blackwater is getting dangerous." Logan sighed, then winced at the pain the action caused. "I know. I'll talk to Sheriff Tanner tomorrow, for all the good it will do." He looked up at Pearl. "I'm sorry this is happening now, with you just arriving." Something in his tone made Pearl's heart twist unexpectedly. He genuinely regretted bringing her into danger, even though their marriage was merely a practical arrangement. "I'm tougher than I look," she reminded him, "and I meant what I said about knowing how to shoot. Perhaps it's time you showed me where you keep the firearms." Logan's eyebrows rose, but he nodded slowly. "I suppose that would be prudent." He attempted to stand, grimacing with the effort. "Not now," Pearl said, putting a hand on his shoulder to keep him seated. "Right now you're going to rest. Doctor's orders." "You're a doctor now?" Logan asked, the ghost of a smile playing around his lips. "I've patched up enough scrapes and bruises in the schoolyard to qualify," she replied. "Mrs. Cooper, do we have any willow bark tea? It's good for pain and swelling." Between them, Pearl and Mrs. Cooper managed to get Logan fed, medicated with willow bark tea, and installed in his armchair in the parlor with strict instructions to rest. Mrs. Cooper left shortly afterward, promising to return the next morning with a special liniment for his ribs. As dusk settled over the ranch, Pearl found herself alone with Logan for the first time since morning. She brought him a cup of coffee and took a seat in the chair opposite his. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I lost an argument with a mule," he admitted. "But the tea helped. Thank you." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching as the last light faded from the sky outside the windows. Finally, Logan spoke. "I measured the study. With some rearranging, we could fit 8 desks comfortably, maybe 10 if there are smaller children." Logan looked surprised. "You've been busy." "I like to be prepared." Pearl sipped her own coffee. "Mrs. Cooper helped me freshen up the bedroom as well." A flush crept up Logan's neck. "I should have thought of that. The room's been closed up since Mother died." "It's lovely now," Pearl assured him. "Mrs. Cooper is a treasure." "That she is." Logan shifted, wincing slightly. "Did she interrogate you thoroughly?" Pearl laughed. "She was very subtle about it, but yes. I think she knows our life stories now." "Did you tell her about our arrangement?" Logan asked quietly. "No. That seemed private." Pearl met his eyes across the dimly lit room. "I told her we had a whirlwind romance. Not so far from the truth, just with different motivations." Logan nodded, something like relief crossing his face. "Thank you. Martha's loyal, but she does like to talk." He set his empty cup aside. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the danger. You're right. I need to take this more seriously, especially with you here now." "What will you do?" "Hire more hands for starters, set up regular patrols, and yes, teach you to handle the rifles we keep here." He leaned forward despite the pain it clearly caused him. "Pearl, if you want to reconsider our arrangement, I would understand. This isn't what you signed up for." Pearl considered his words carefully. He was offering her an out, a chance to walk away from their unusual marriage and the increasingly dangerous situation at Double K. The sensible thing would be to accept, to return to Silverwater and find another solution to her housing problem. But something kept her in her seat. Perhaps it was the way Logan had tried to protect her from the harsh realities of ranch life. Perhaps it was the respect he'd shown for her skills and intelligence, or perhaps it was simply that Pearl Vasquez had never been one to run from a challenge. I signed up to be your wife, Logan Kincaid, however unconventional our circumstances. I'm not leaving just because things have gotten complicated. She straightened her spine. Besides, I have 15 students waiting for an education, and I intend to provide it. A slow smile spread across Logan's face, transforming it despite the bruises and cuts. You really are something, Pearl Vasquez Kincaid. So you've said, she replied, returning his smile. Now, tell me more about these men from Blackwater Ranch. I want to know exactly what we're facing. The next week established a routine of sorts. Pearl set up the study as a classroom, arranging the furniture and making lists of supplies needed. Logan, despite his injuries, continued the daily work of running the ranch, though he allowed his foreman, Jake Turner, to handle the more strenuous tasks. True to his word, Logan taught Pearl how to use the Winchester rifle kept in the hall closet and the revolver he insisted she carry when moving around the ranch property alone. She proved to be a quick study and a surprisingly good shot, which seemed to both impress and amuse him. My father believed in self-reliance, Pearl explained after hitting 5 out of 6 targets during practice. He said a woman alone needed to know how to protect herself. Smart man, Logan said, not for the first time. Where is he now, your father? He died when I was 19, Pearl said, reloading the revolver. Influenza took him and my mother both in the same winter. She kept her voice matter-of-fact, though the memory still ached. I've been on my own since then. Logan was silent for a moment. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, Pearl agreed. But it taught me resilience. 4 days after the incident at the east boundary, Mrs. Cooper arrived with news from town. Sheriff Tanner arrested 2 men from Blackwater yesterday, she reported as she kneaded bread dough. Caught them red-handed trying to alter brands on Cooper Creek cattle. Logan, who had been reviewing the ranch accounts at the kitchen table, looked up sharply. Anyone I know? Fellow named Curly Johnson and another called Wes something. Sheriff's holding them for the circuit judge. That's a start, Logan said, though he didn't look particularly satisfied. But Hardin's the one giving the orders, and he's too smart to get his hands dirty. Pearl, who had been making flashcards for her youngest students, set down her scissors. Perhaps this will make him more cautious, knowing the sheriff is watching. Or more desperate, Logan countered. Men like Hardin don't back down easily. His prediction proved accurate. The very next day, Jake Turner rode in with news that someone had poisoned the water hole at the south pasture. 3 cattle were dead, and more were sick. It's got to be Hardin, Logan said, pacing the parlor that evening. He's escalating because we're fighting back. Pearl watched him with growing concern. The bruises on his face had faded to a sickly yellow, but the worry lines between his eyebrows had deepened. Could it be someone else? Another ranch with a grievance? Logan shook his head. Double K has good relations with everyone else in the valley. This started when Blackwater moved in. He stopped pacing abruptly. I'm sending you back to town. What? Pearl stared at him in disbelief. It's not safe here. Poisoning water holes crosses a line. Next time it could be the house well. Or worse. Logan's face was grim in the lamplight. I won't risk your safety. Pearl stood, indignation straightening her spine. I'm not leaving. Pearl, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, she interrupted. Sending me away solves nothing. If these men are targeting Double K, they'll target me whether I'm here or in town. She moved closer to him. Besides, we're partners in this, remember? For better or worse. Logan's expression softened slightly. Those weren't exactly the vows we took. Nevertheless, they apply. Pearl placed a hand on his arm. We'll face this together, Logan. I'm not afraid. He covered her hand with his own. the touch sending an unexpected warmth through her. "You should be," he said quietly. "I am." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Pearl forgot that theirs was a marriage of convenience. There was something in Logan's gaze, a warmth, a vulnerability that made her heart beat faster. The moment was broken by a knock at the front door. Logan pulled away, instantly alert. "Stay here," he said, reaching for the revolver he now kept in the parlor drawer. Pearl ignored the instruction, following a few steps behind as he moved cautiously to the door. "Who is it?" Logan called. "Sheriff Tanner," came the reply. "Need a word, Kincaid." Logan relaxed slightly and opened the door to reveal the sheriff standing on the porch, hat in hand. "Evening, Sheriff. Bit late for a social call." "This ain't social," Tanner said grimly. "May I come in?" Logan stepped aside and the sheriff entered, nodding respectfully to Pearl. "Madam, sorry to intrude at this hour." "Not at all," Pearl said. "Can I offer you coffee or something stronger?" "Coffee would be welcome. It's a long ride back to town." In the kitchen, Pearl put the kettle on while Logan and the sheriff seated themselves at the table. She could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut. "What brings you out here, Sheriff?" Logan asked, getting straight to the point. Tanner sighed heavily. "Two things. First, Curly Johnson and Wes Payton escaped from the jail this afternoon. Someone slipped them a file in their dinner." Logan swore under his breath. "And the second thing? Hardin's filed a complaint against you. Claims you trespassed on Blackwater property and assaulted his men without provocation." Tanner's face showed what he thought of the accusation. "It's nonsense, of course, but I have to investigate." "That's ridiculous," Pearl said, forgetting her role as a simple hostess. "Logan was on his own property when they attacked him. 3 against 1. Tanner raised an eyebrow. "Is that what happened, Kincaid?" Logan nodded. "I found 3 Blackwater men checking out my east boundary. When I confronted them, they jumped me. I defended myself and rode away. Never set foot on Blackwater land." "That's what I figured," Tanner said. "Hardin's trying to muddy the waters, make it look like you're the aggressor." He accepted the cup of coffee Pearl placed before him. "There's more. Word in town is that Hardin's bringing in more men from down south. Professional troublemakers, if you take my meaning." "Gunmen," Logan translated flatly. "Likely." Tanner took a sip of his coffee. "I'd increase your security if I were you, Kincaid, and maybe send the missus to stay with friends for a while." "I've already suggested that," Logan said with a pointed look at Pearl. "She declined." Tanner chuckled. "Doesn't surprise me. Mrs. Kincaid strikes me as a lady with a backbone." His expression turned serious again. "All the same, things could get ugly. I'll do what I can, but I'm one man with a single deputy." "We understand," Pearl said. "And we appreciate the warning." After the sheriff left, Pearl and Logan returned to the parlor, the weight of Tanner's news hanging between them. "This changes things," Logan said finally. "If Hardin's bringing in hired guns, we're looking at more than cattle rustling and fence cutting." Pearl sat beside him on the sofa, closer than she normally would have. "What do you think he wants?" "The ranch." Logan's voice was hard. "Double K has the best water rights in the valley. Whoever controls this land controls access to Cooper Creek. In a dry year, that's as good as gold." "Can he just take it? Legally?" "No. But if he can drive me off, make it too costly or dangerous to stay." Logan shook his head. "I've seen it happen before. A small rancher gets squeezed until he sells for pennies on the dollar." "We won't let that happen," Pearl said firmly. "This is your legacy, your family's home." Logan turned to her, surprise evident on his face. "Our home," he corrected gently. "For now, at least." The correction sent an unexpected pang through Pearl. Yes, this arrangement was temporary, a year at most. She had no real claim on Double K, No right to think of it as her home. Yet somehow, in just over a week, the ranch had begun to feel like exactly that. "You're right," she said, forcing a smile. "Our home, for now, and we'll defend it together." The next morning, Logan called a meeting of all the ranch hands. 15 men gathered in front of the house as the sun rose, their faces solemn as Logan explained the situation. "Blackwater's bringing in gunmen," he concluded. "Sheriff Tanner's spread too thin to offer much help. So we need to be ready." He looked around the group. "If any man wants to leave, I'll understand. This isn't what you signed on for." The men exchanged glances, but no one stepped forward. "We're with you, boss," Jake Turner said finally. "Double K's been good to us. Besides, if Hardin gets away with this, no ranch in the valley is safe." A murmur of agreement ran through the group. Logan nodded, his expression grateful. "Thank you. All of you." He outlined new security measures. No one would work alone. The house and main buildings would be guarded at night, and everyone would be armed at all times. As the men dispersed to their duties, Pearl approached Logan. "I'd like to delay the start of school," she said, "just until this situation is resolved." Logan frowned. "You've been working so hard to get ready. The children are expecting to start next week." "Their safety comes first," Pearl insisted. "I won't risk having them here if there's danger." Logan studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. Send word to the families. We'll reassess in a week."